Hey, how's it going everyone? My name is Brandon Clements and welcome back to another exciting video here on Glass Hand. And today I am super pumped to show you this project that I've been working on for many months. I've been doing this kind of as a learning project for me, but also I thought this would be super cool to showcase on the channel and just talk about how you can create really cool stories with maybe something that is close to you, like the Batman is close to me, which, by the way, this is not a sponsored video. I have no affiliation with Warner Brothers or any of the filmmakers whatsoever. This is just me and making a passion project, doing some modeling in Blender and kind of doing a parody of the movie, if you will. This Batman character is not one-to-one to the movie. No, I could not do that movie justice because the art direction of that film is just incredible. If you haven't seen the Batman, please go watch that movie. It's one of my favorite ever Batman movies for sure, and definitely favorite superhero movie of all time. Matt Reeves, if you ever watch this video, you're amazing. Thank you for an incredible film and all the people who worked on it. It's just a masterclass from camera, lighting, lensing, everything from beginning to end. It's incredible. So enough gushing about the movie. What are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about modeling in Blender. I'm going to show you how I unwrap the character, how I brought it into Substance Painter to actually do the texturing, how I use Metahuman Creator in a really cool way, probably in a way you wouldn't think of using it, doing some rigging in Maya to create the custom Metahuman, and then bringing that back into Unreal Engine. I'm also going to show you a little bit of how I use Rokoko Studio for animation for I recreated the intro shot, which I'll roll here in a minute if you guys are still with me. I'll show you what we're going to create. And then I brought it all the way back into Unreal Engine to do the rendering and the composition. And then I did color correction inside of Davinci Resolve and did the editing there and the sound design. And, you know, love Davinci Resolve, as you know. People who have been watching my channel for the last couple of years. Okay, so let's go ahead and roll what we're gonna create.
I'm vengeance.
Okay, so starting in Blender. Blender is pretty much my main app now that I do all my 3D content creation in. I had to start somewhere, obviously, for this Batman. There's a lot of different pieces. I kind of have this broken down into different sections. The weapon here on the front, the throat guard, the torso, the belt, the pockets, the straps, the sleeves that are underneath the armor, and then the biceps, the forearms, and the hands, and the shoulder pads. And then I also did the boots, which are extremely low detail. I actually really didn't even finish out the boots. The pants, the cape, and the cowl. And then, of course, the face and everything is the Metahuman. So I actually started this project off not thinking I was going to use the Metahuman character at all. And the reason I chose to bring all this into Metahumans is because the rig for the face in Metahumans is unbelievable. And then using control rig with the body and the face, it just seemed like a no-brainer when it came to animation that I wanted to kind of incorporate that into my project. So I started this from just a simple base model, and then I started from the top. So I started from the cowl because I thought that would be the most fun thing to do, and used Blender sculpting tools to kind of sculpt all of that out. So I extracted pieces from my base mesh of the human, if you will, and then I knew what parts I needed to map out, and basically just use all of the sculpting tools inside of Blender to create kind of the rough shapes and get everything blocked out. And at that point in time, I was not worried with anything in terms of topology. Nothing like that. It's all just about, you know, being artistic and not making, not thinking about too many decisions at that time, and just kind of sculpting and getting things blocked out. And then from there, I started extracting pieces, and I actually used Retopo Flow, which you can see up here. Retopo Flow is amazing inside of Blender to actually go in and retopologize everything. So that's kind of how I got all the clean wires and everything to kind of be a game ready asset, if you will. I didn't want this to be super high poly because, like I said, I still wanted to be able to move the rig inside of Unreal Engine to edit the animations and be able to drive everything. So the density is pretty much in line with the base Metahuman. So if I show you, this is the Metahuman that actually came out of Metahuman Creator. I opened that inside of Maya and got an FBX. So here's the actual proportions of the Metahuman, and basically I just wrapped all of my geometry around that base Metahuman. So I wasn't thinking about that at the beginning of the project, which in hindsight would have been beneficial, because then I wouldn't have had to conform everything quite so deliberately. And you can see here I actually messed up some of the weaponry on his arm, on his forearm here. It's not as straight as it should be, so it's just one of those things. It's not a perfect model by any means, but from a cinematic view, it gets the job done of how it's rendered in camera. And then the cape was actually going to be simulated inside of Unreal Engine. So the cape is definitely the most simple object here. Really just extremely simple shapes, and just tried to keep everything kind of consistent in terms of the density, in terms of polygons on the cape. And you can still see all my brush strokes are still on the cape. Now, there was one really cool thing that I did with this project inside of Metahuman Creator, and that is I had a sculpt of Robert Pattinson's face. So I used this sculpt to actually bring this into Metahuman Creator and do the mesh to Metahuman process, which is inside of Unreal Engine as a plugin in 5.0.3. It's currently at the time of recording in this video, you can't do it in 5.1 just because the plugin is not ready or compiled with that version of the engine. Which is totally fine. You can just do it in 5.0.3, and then you just upload it to Metahuman Creator, and that's how I was able to get a likeness. If I was just to solo these two objects here, you can see this is what Mesh to Metahumans gave me as a result from the sculpt here on the left. And then the boring part was going through and creating all the UV unwrapping. So if I show you the UV editor, I use UDIMs. So UDIMs, if you're not familiar, you can place tiles outside of the 0 to 1 space to provide you more texture resolution. So instead of doing like a, let's see, this is a 1, 2, 3, 4 tile here. Instead of trying to squeeze all of this into a tile that is only on the 0 to 1, like a normal kind of UV unwrap, you would need an extremely large image to get all the detail here. Inside of Unreal Engine, you can use virtual textures to stream your UDIMs, which give you a much higher quality texel density, because you're actually using 4 4K maps instead of one 16K map. So that saves a ton on texture memory, and you can actually stream that on the GPU using virtual textures, which is pretty amazing. So all these different parts you can see here for the bicep. I knew I didn't need anything larger than a 4K texture here, but as you look at some of these other detailed armor pieces, the legs, the pants I should say, and some of the accessories, you can see that those are laid out accordingly, judging by what I thought the texel density needed to be for those texture sets. Okay, and I believe the gloves are identical, so those UVs are right on top of one another for the gloves, because I didn't really need to go in and do, you know, a separate texture just for this one hand. I knew I wanted some detail on those gloves. I knew that they might be showing up in camera pretty close, so I went ahead and just made those the same. And this is what the unwrap of the cow looks like. I'll show you a little bit of how I did the unwrapping. Basically, you can see here, I'm just grabbing edges inside of Blender. And what I did was I marked these as, let's see if I go to my quick favorites, I marked it as a seam. And then I could actually grab this and hit U and unwrap. And with those seams marked, it actually lays these out for me. So I didn't have to do too much in terms of UV unwrapping, because the topology that I had provided me a good starting point for unwrapping all of this. I could just grab my nice edge flows and just mark those as a seam and use the unwrap feature. So it made really quick work of creating the UV layout for this character. Okay, so moving right along, this is the Batman inside of Substance Painter. So you can see just from this project breakdown, you know, all the different parts and pieces came in by the materials that were assigned to them in Blender. So those show up as texture sets, and it's all UDIMs, just like we broke down in Blender. And then I basically in here just use a lot of smart materials to make really fast work of this process. If you are interested in learning Substance Painter, I do have an intro, a few intro videos here on the channel. They're old, but I think they'll still hold up. And if you guys want to see more content with Substance Painter, definitely let me know. But you can see I spent a lot of time on the stitching that's on the mask, and you know, hindsight 2020, I would have spent more time modeling this cowl, because once I got it into Unreal and I started seeing it in a cinematic fashion, the mask in the film is just so good. Like the design of it, the way it kind of looks like a skull, so it kind of has this like eerie feeling to it when you look at it. It's kind of scary, intimidating. I wish I would have put more of that into this model, just kind of chiseling out some of the shapes a little bit more. Mine's more round and fits to the metahuman head a little bit too closely. So once I got it into the texturing phase here, and once I got it into the engine, I was kind of kicking myself that I didn't want to go back and redo it. But yeah, maybe something I'll do in the future, just because, you know, I would really love for this to become maybe like a fan short film, or do some cool animations with this. But yeah, everything is just kind of blocked out on its own. I went in and added some really cool detail here to kind of the tactical pockets here that you would see maybe on like a police officer, or something you could actually order, something that someone could actually obtain. That's what I love about this suit, is that it does feel very modern in terms of like a Batman portrayal, but it also is something that a civilian could get their hands on if they knew, you know, where to order some of this equipment from. So it's super tactical feeling, which I just absolutely love. It feels very visceral and real, as you can see here. The weapon here on the forearm is kind of bent slightly, and this is something in Substance Painter that I've noticed. My GPU will sometimes load these tiles and the mip maps in kind of weird, but it goes away when you zoom in and zoom out a little bit. So this is actually detail that came from the high resolution sculpt. Like I told you guys, it started out as a sculpt, so on the organic parts I was able to use that high resolution detail and bake it into the texture maps here. And then I actually painted custom masks for things like the webbing, and then this kind of tactical rubber that's going across the character. So this was super fun to actually go in and add detail to, like the shin guards here that kind of look like motorcycle boots, or motorcycle kind of protectors for these shins. And then the boots, as you can see, there's almost no detail on them. I just was too excited with the project to spend time texturing and modeling the boots. I know that's pretty bad, but yeah, there's a lot of really cool details here that I feel like are not really captured in the final rendering, and I think would hold up really well if you were doing a short film where you could get really close in and see some of these details. because yeah, they look spectacular here in the Substance Painter viewer, which really helps you understand what it's going to look like when you move it over to Unreal Engine. Even these straps here, you can see with the UDIMs, I have enough texel density to show like their straps underneath the armor, holding it onto the chest plate here, and then more with the stitch brush and Substance Painter to kind of really weave all of this around. There's an actual brush. If you type in stitch, you can see there's stitches straight, which I used, and you can turn this on to the flow so that it follows your mouse cursor. And I have a Cintiq here that I can actually draw on the screen, and it helps a ton to add in these super fine details like this. But again, when you back out, you don't see it, but you feel the details, and that's what's really a fine line to walk between hours of putting it into a project in terms of just like the hard labor and the work of doing it, and then the result of it feeling real. Like you have to put in those little details because you notice them if they aren't there, but you don't notice them when they are there, if that makes any sense. And that's something that I've kind of learned the hard way when it comes to texturing. Okay, cool. So I think that does it for just kind of showcasing this. I'm sorry that I'm not breaking this down, but in the sake of time, we're actually going to move on to the next step, which is going into some of the Metahuman Creator stuff, which should be really cool. Okay, so I wanted to show off a little bit of this Metahuman Creator interface and showing what the underlying Metahuman look like without all the Batman stuff equipped on it, just so you can see kind of the uncanniness of this character. I feel like it got to a pretty good place where his face and the underlying structure of it was good enough from the sculpt that I had back in Blender to kind of, you know, actually upload this into Mesh to Metahumans and create this avatar that you see here. So once you actually bring everything into Mesh to Metahumans and you upload it and you have it here, there's not a whole lot to say in terms of what you can do in this tool besides make it look good. And that's what I spent a lot of time doing, was just coming into the skin area and just kind of tweaking this and trying to get the likeness as closely as possible just from using the few sliders here to make it look like Robert Pattinson's portrayal of Bruce Wayne in the film. So there are a decent amount of customization options here, but you can see as I click through, it is still pretty limited, but it gives you a great baseline. And of course you could go into Blender and create your own custom grooms for the Metahumans and then bring those into Unreal Engine. If you guys want to see a video on that, let me know. If you want to see a video on any of these topics or have me explain something, just let me know in the comment section below. But I did kind of like cave in the skull as much as possible just to get, you know, as less penetration as possible from the cowl. So if I hide the hair, you can see I just took these the sculpt parts, so you can come in here, I believe under move and under sculpt, and you can grab some of these different dots and pull them in, so you can see that I actually don't really have a huge skull on this character because I wanted the cowl to kind of take up a lot of that space and fill that up. So it was a weird fine line of making him look like Robert Pattinson, but also fitting him underneath of a sculpt that I had made inside of Blender and just attaching that costume to the Metahuman. Okay, so here we are inside of Maya, and this is the Metahuman rig. I just brought in all the geometry on top of it and went ahead and kind of got it organized into the groups where all the geometry is. So you can see if I was to go under this body group, I believe, oh, I have a Batsuit group here, transform. So I actually put the cowl into the head group geometry to be able to manipulate it a little bit. But as you can see, everything is working intact here. And the cowl is actually skinned to the face, which is good and bad. It's bad in the way of it's actually deforming. but you could come in here and fix that. You could paint those skin weights out of here just to keep everything completely solid. But this was just something that I was doing really quickly, and I'll show you a little bit how to get this set up. Now this whole topic in general, it could be its own video, so I'm not going to go way in depth, but I'm going to show you some things that I had to kind of overcome and figure out. The first thing that you need to have is bridge installed for just Quixel bridge, just the plain Quixel bridge. And you can see here what you would want to actually do is download this and go to the files. Okay, so with that downloaded, you will be prompted here to a folder, a download folder, and you're going to want to look for under asset resources, metahumans. You can see these are the different rig files that I have here, but there's some really interesting stuff here under source assets. Here's the full rig that I made versions out of, and then there is also just like this a simple body rig that's in here as well, and along with the DNA files that you're going to want to drag and drop into Unreal Engine. That's going to help provide all of the information for metahumans to work correctly inside of Unreal. So don't sleep on these DNA files. This is something that helps you just connect everything together in terms of the waiting for the cal is one of the things that I had to figure out. I wasn't able to get the rig working and the skin weights, and once I dragged this DNA file into the software, everything kind of connected and it made sense once I actually dragged and dropped that in there. I know that's super vague, but I think we can go into that topic more later at a later video, and kind of just keep this as a high level overview. So yeah, once I opened that rig file here, I brought in the mesh pieces, and there is a combined metahuman piece of geometry that's in this scene. Let me see if I can find that really quick for us. Okay, I was able to find it under body group, geometry group, and it's in LOD0. And if I just show this and isolate this really quickly, it is just a metahuman that does not look like Robert Pattinson, but it's just a fully combined watertight metahuman mesh. And this is really important for us because this can contain a lot of skin weight information that I can transfer over to my pieces of the armor. So what I was able to do was I could grab like this chest plate, and then I could grab the combined mesh, and I could do under skin weights. So I had to change my module over to rigging, skin, and then let's see, copy skin weights. Okay, so I was able to copy basically the entire weights just from this combined mesh here, and that gave me a really good starting point to bring all this over into Unreal Engine. As you can see, the cape is still weighted to the arms, but again, this is a dynamic mesh using the Chaos Cloth engine inside of Unreal Engine. So I wasn't too worried that this was all kind of skinned together. I did this pretty sloppily. Like, I was just really excited to get everything into the engine and get it working. But you can see here as I'm kind of grabbing the bind skin or the bind skeleton, you can see that everything is working really well. And again, I did not edit these pants. I just basically took everything from the combined mesh, and that will help you immensely getting everything together. So now this is the point where I had to try to figure out how to get everything into Unreal from here. Like, the rig is kind of working and it's working in the DCCs. How do we get this all into Unreal Engine? Well, from the exporting standpoint of Maya, you just want to be able to grab, there's these body joints down here. You can right click and you can select the set members here. So you can see everything here that it's selected. The most important thing inside of Unreal Engine with skeletons and skeletal meshes, and this is a hard lesson to learn, but you need to have everything named specifically, like to a T. Everything needs to match 100%. So root, pelvis, spinal one, like it needs to read all completely clear and kosher. So when you do the exports and make this as modular as the metahumans are, you want to make sure that you're just doing export selections. So I would grab like these bones and then the cow, for instance, or the body, and I'll show you what that looks like in the project here in one moment. But that is something that you have to really keep an eye on so that you can target the exact same skeleton that is in Metahumans in Unreal Engine. So let's go ahead and jump into that project real quick and see if we can make some connections so this can make some sense. Okay, so here we are back inside of Unreal, and I'm just going to show you what the import folder looks like. So I just have this first version of the bat suit, and you can see all of what I kind of exported. So the boots, the cow, I have another Cal V2 here that I used. This was kind of like my first attempt that didn't go so well. So this is the Cal V2. I have the bat suit legs, and I have a master material that I made with all of my textures from Substance Painter, and then I have the torso. So let me pop this open really quick so we can take a look at it. And once this loads up, we'll see that the skeleton is pretty much, you can see our Chaos Cloth engine working also in the background, which is really cool, by the way. But you can see that this is listed exactly the same as all the metahuman skeletons. Okay, so this needs to be your top priority when getting this out of Maya. It needs to be exactly the same. And trust me, there's some trial and error that I had to do to make sure this was coming in correctly. And then when you import the skeletal mesh, instead of leaving the skeleton portion blank, you want to be able to target the same skeleton as your metahuman. So that's really important when you do the import, that you make sure to do that. So let me see if I can try and bring that up for us really quick. Okay, so I'm just going to pull a generic file here. It totally doesn't even matter what this is. So where it says skeleton, you want to bring in your mesh with the same metahuman skeleton. So let me see if I can find that here. Okay, so this is the skeleton that we want, the metahuman base skeleton. So this skeleton is going to be the same what is on the metahuman, and so we got to make sure that our custom pieces adhere to the same laws and rules of the skeleton. And I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, but I want you to realize that if you create something that is out of these boundaries, then you're going to have a little bit of a problem. Now, it can be done in a modular character workflow. You can have unique pieces, unique skeletons for unique modular pieces, but that's outside of the scope of this video. I just want you to know what I did was I used this base skeleton for all the body parts, and then the cow actually used the face archetype skeleton, which is the face which is the skeleton that is in the metahuman face. So everything is identical pretty much in terms of a rigging and skeleton perspective as the metahuman. It's just custom meshes basically bound to that skeleton on top of it. That's how you want to think about it. Okay, and once you have that done, I'm going to show you what the blueprint looks like. So if we go into, I believe, let me find this really quick. I haven't really looked at this in a while, but let's see if we can find it. Metahumans, Robert Pattinson, MHI, and then this is the blueprint class. Okay, and this blueprint contains all of the metahuman fun stuff incorporated into it. So there wasn't really a ton that was changed here inside of this blueprint. So let me make some room here so we can look at it. You can see that the body is the parent. I did add a live link component here. If you want to know more about components, by the way, I'm going to shield my other video that I have that talks about components that's on my channel. It talks about actor components and all kinds of cool stuff. You'll definitely want to check that out. So I used LiveLink for some features. I did a lot of testing in this project. LiveLink is really cool because you can stream data from Rokoko Studio straight into your Metahuman, and it's pretty amazing to see it update live when you're wearing the suit. So I have the body, the feet, the legs, the torso, the face, and all of the grooms parented accordingly. And this should look very familiar to you based on all the other Metahuman stuff that you've probably taken a look at before. And then we also have the anim class here. This is the animation blueprint for the metahumans, and everything is basically derived from that blueprint class. So let me see if I can find some different logic in here just to showcase. This was some logic to set up Rokoko, but you can see there's a lot of just different initialization and setup that's already done on this event graph for you. Stuff like material opacities and AR kit is already kind of set up here. And then inside of the construction script, you can see that there's the feet, legs, torso, basically all of the stuff that is parented underneath of the body. This is how it gets its directions on what to do. It's basically this enable master pose, and this master pose is used in a lot of module character workflows. And what this allows you to do is notice the body isn't being told what to do, because it is the parent, and the feet and the legs and the torso are just looking at the self here, which is its parent, so the body. So anything that the body does, which is accepting a blueprint here, these appendages are gonna follow along. These children will follow along. The face has its own blueprint, so we don't really have to worry about that. It's just attached to the body. So they are two separate things, but those bones, the joints, if you will, are in the same place, so the parent relationship should work really well there. And that's kind of a breakdown of how the metahumans are set up. It's kind of more or less a modular character workflow. Okay, cool. So not a whole lot of customization done to the blueprint itself. It's already really well put together, and there's not that's what I love about metahumans. There's not a whole lot of building that you have to do, but you can create all kinds of stuff. You can expand upon what they've already done. But I did have some stuff here for the LiveLink face subject. This is for the iPhone to be able to connect through LiveLink to actually drive the facial performance. And then we also have this LiveLink body subject, and I was using this with iClone. iClone has some really sweet tools. It's kind of out of the scope of this video, but it has some really great tools with working with metahumans. If you want to see that in a future video, I'm sure I'm going to cover that, because I'm a huge fan of what Character Creator and LiveLink can do for digital humans as well. Okay, so we're nearing the end of the video, and we're starting to talk more about animation. So this is the Rokoko Studio part of the video. I'm not going to go super deep into Rokoko Studio or the hardware or any of the setup. If you guys would like to see that in a future video, let me know. But I have used Rokoko for many years, since the first suit, and I will say that my experience with it has ranged from incredible quality to not so incredible quality, and it usually is determined by many factors in the environment or the hardware that you have available to you when you're working with it. And I just want to say as a PSA, because I don't think that they say this a lot, and their materials, or at least they didn't when I first got my V1 suit, but I think they're starting to say it now with the V2 suit, is that you need a dedicated router if you're using this at home or at the office, because your Wi-Fi and all the different frequencies that are happening in the space can interfere with the mocap data. So that's a huge thing, and it's almost a necessary buy. Depending on everyone, everyone's going to have a different setup, but you need to get your own dedicated router just for Rokoko Studio if you plan on using it long term. You'll thank yourself for that. And you'll also want to set the frequency of the router to a higher frequency so that it doesn't interfere with all the low-level Wi-Fi noise coming from other devices in your house or in your office. You're also going to want to get to an environment that has low magnetic interference, and there's magnometers that you can download, like apps for the iPhone and for Android, to help, you know, kind of pinpoint where problem locations are going to be. And all of that is needed to be put out there before you kind of use this technology, because it's really frustrating if you jump in there and you don't know all that stuff, right? So I just wanted to say it. This was not actually the take that I ended up using for the walk. I actually did it on my laptop downstairs one day, because my office up here is not really big. It's about, I would say maybe 300 square feet of walking area, and downstairs in the kitchen I could actually walk for an extended, you know, area and record that and use that in Unreal for the intro walk, because it is a pretty long walk that he does in the intro. So I'll pinpoint some things that you'll need to look out for in Rokoko Studio. Like I said, I won't go super in depth. But the gizmos on the feet, you can actually show this, and what this will do is it will help you see when the contact points are happening with the feet. And the entire algorithm pretty much relies on the feet positions and when they hit the floor. So right here, I should be making contact with the foot, so I'm going to slide this keyframe over here and process the changes. And then if we watch this back again, this shouldn't slide anymore, and it should look a lot better. Now, you can see here with the foot peeling off and lifting up, that's looking pretty good. The algorithm itself relies super heavy on this, and you can see where this starts to get a little wonky. This foot was probably planted sooner, the green gizmo, and so you get some weird drifting, and yeah, so there's some things like that can happen in the process of using this suit. So let's just see what happens if I bring this back here a little bit and process the changes. Okay, and so you can see that you can manipulate it a little bit, and I wish there was better tools to kind of push and nudge your feet in Rokoko Studio, because it's so dependent on, you can see that may look a little bit better to you, but it's so dependent on the feet. Like, if you have problems with the feet, you're gonna have problems pretty much on the entire skeleton. It's gonna affect the hips, it's gonna affect the spine, it's gonna affect everything. So pretty much with motion capture and animation in general, I would say with character animation, you need to make sure that that you are working from the feet up. I would say that's a pretty good strategy. I'm not a professional animator by any means, but that's what's helped me in my work, and definitely my work here in Rokoko Studio. Okay, so all of that said, I hope that helps you a little bit in terms of just, you know, motion capture or animation with Rokoko Studio. But what I did was I exported this I did two different things, and I'll explain here. I used the Metahuman IK skeleton with iClone. It's really cool. You can like export this as the Maya HIK skeleton. iClone knows exactly what that skeleton is, and you can create a really robust motion library just from your recordings of exporting the Metahuman IK skeleton. The other thing, what you can do, the other strategy is using the live stream feature that is in Rokoko Studio and streaming directly into Unreal Engine and capturing it with the take recorder inside of Unreal, which is awesome because it will create a clip for you, and then you don't have to like deal with file types or, you know, bring that into Maya or bring it into Blender, whatever it may be. To do cleanup, you can just stream it straight into Unreal, and then you can apply the control rig to it and do cleanup in Unreal. And that was the first strategy that I did before I started looking at iClone and some of these other tools. Again, I was using this project as a way to test a lot of different technologies and just see what I liked personally. And I am really leaning towards iClone, just in general, iClone and Character Creator, because the workflow there and the tools they have are amazing. Like connecting all the clips together and doing the animation, you can clean it up super fast, and I've really loved using it. So maybe in a future video we'll take a look at some of the Real Illusion tools to create digital humans. Feel like that's going to be in our future, definitely. Okay, cool. So streaming that in and then capturing it. I'm going to close this. I just want to show you where the take recorder is. So once that is live, you can come into cinematics, take recorder, and you need to add a few elements in here to your scene. You'll have to go into all classes and you can search for Rokoko, and you'll want to get the Rokoko remote, I believe. Oh, I'm sorry, not the remote. You'll want to get the receiver. Let me put that into the scene real quick. We'll go to all classes. With this, you can just start typing Rokoko receiver. And then the port number is what was shown inside of Rokoko Studio. Sorry, let me just bring that up really fast. Just so if this is your first time using that live stream feature, I don't want to leave you hanging. So let me just go to live stream in the settings, and then this is the port number. This is the IP address. So this is the 127.0.0.1. That is your local host, and that is the default local host address of a computer. And without getting into too much IT stuff, like the local host is a way for computers to talk to themselves, like it's their, you know. So this is the same IP address. We're on the same computer, so we want to use localhost, and then 14.0.4.5, and this needs to say 14.0.4.5 as well. And then you should be able to come over to the live link feature. So let me go to window. I already have it open, actually, live link, but it's under window and virtual production live link, and then you can add the source Rokoko. You see the studio here, and this is how you would actually stream this data over. So you can see that it's on, and then you want to actually open the take, and then the name of your character, which is Brandon here, the actor name, that is going to show up here inside of live link. And I believe if I go ahead and just simulate, nothing will happen yet. So you would have to come into the blueprint of this, and you would have to set this up. So if I wanted this to work, I could set this up on event begin play, and I have a variable here for Brandon. So if I save this, and then I need to check out the animation blueprint really quick and see what this looks like, and then you can see that I'm getting the live link right here, this data from live link. But if I was just to take the input pose and then put that into here and use the Rokoko stuff, and I'm using a retargeting asset from Rokoko. So if I was to browse to this, this is the bone mapping, and what this does is it just says, hey, you know, the hip is actually called pelvis and the stomach is called spinal 1, and it just makes everything adhere to the Metahuman bone listing with the Rokoko data. So now if I compile that, you can see that it starts walking, and then you can see that Batman is actually walking here. The difference being there is an offset between the T pose and the A pose, and that's what you're seeing here. So Batman is actually in an A pose, and the stream data from Rokoko wants it to be in a T pose. This isn't really a big issue because you can just use the control rig once you capture this animation and move the arms out with an additive track using control rig. And control rig is already built for you with the metahumans. So that's a really nice way of fixing this. So if you wanted to do this, we can go ahead and add a source here. So we'll add that guy, and we'll just go ahead and record this. just for example's sake, and we'll just stop it real quick. And then we'll review that last recording. And so if I go to cinematics, takes, and I want to go to today's date and look at this sequencer. I actually had it on a different screen. We can pop into this. We can unlock it, and we can see that the other Batman in the scene is walking. So I could get rid of the one that is coming in from the live link. I can disable the live link and maybe just delete that actor from the scene, and it's going to be like, hey, yo, all this stuff is going to be broken. You sure you want to do this? And I'm going to go ahead and hit no, just because if this disconnects, it's going to be annoying. But I just want to show you the feature of baking this to the control rig. So let me just do that really quick and just accomplish the task that I wanted to accomplish. And so now if I looked at this and come down to body, you can see there's Metahuman control rig. And if I disable game view and I want to maybe just back up to the first part, so I'll go to the first frame, add section, we'll go additive. And now I have two tracks here, and one you can see that says additive. So if I unhide the control shapes over here on the left, there's a little checkbox. And I just come over and just rotate his arms outward, because remember there's that offset that we talked about from the T and A pose. So now I can use the control rig to kind of offset his arms once again and get him walking. So control rig is insane. I love it. I love it so much, and it has saved me time and time again. Not saved even. I mean, just the fact that they've built this into Unreal is crazy to me. It's mind-blowing. It opens so many possibilities and so many doors. You know, and you can actually go back to the regular data here and visualize this on the graph. I mean, how crazy is this? I'll show you just an example. If you were to come into, I don't know, any of these really, you can just look at all the data. It's all here. So you can see the arm, the FK arm data. It's just incredible. You can do a lot of stuff in here. You can come in here and simplify this. You can clean it up. You can smooth it out. You can do a ton of cleanup here just using control rig. So you don't even have to go into another software to polish your animations. You can just capture them straight from any of your inertial mocap systems and just have them straight away in Unreal. So I just wanted to show you that. It's super easy to do. I just wanted you to see that it wasn't like a big deal. I know some of the blueprint stuff may be a little bit confusing, but man, once you get into it, it's super straightforward. And since you're already here and this video is already so long, I'll just kind of break down how this is working, because I don't feel like I did a very good job of that. So in the event graph, on event begin play, you're casting to your own instance of the Metahuman animation blueprint. And so you're getting a reference to that, and you're saying, hey, I need to know what the variable is for the Rokoko actor, and you can actually set it here. So setting it here allows you to communicate with all the data that is being streamed in. And then if you were to look at the animation blueprint, which I have open right here, you can see that everything is just kind of being fed in by this Rokoko body pose. And this is a plugin that you can get from Rokoko Studio. This is not built into Unreal. This is something you need to get from them. And you can see that I created this variable here for the actor name. And you can actually make this public and expose it so that you can name it outside of this blueprint as well. So they make it really easy on you. It's pretty amazing how this is all set up. Okay, cool. So now that we've chatted about that stuff, I'm glad that we were able to do that. let's go ahead and look at the actual scene with the subway and the lighting and all that stuff. A lot of the decisions about how the materials look, if they look weird here, is because they needed to look good in context in that subway station scene. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to load at that level, and we'll start talking about that. Okay, so here we are, my friends. We are all the way at the very end of this video. If you stuck around this far, thank you so much. It's super cool to be able to showcase this and learn from you guys, and maybe have you guys learn something from me. So I think it's super awesome to be able to do this, and I appreciate all the subscribers to the channel and also the people who are commenting below. It really does help get visibility on the video, and I love talking to you guys. I just do. Okay, cool. So let's talk about this scene. I'm using ultra dynamic sky for the rain. So first off, the rain in ultra dynamic sky is amazing. It is super good. If you're not familiar with ultra dynamic sky, it is an asset on the Unreal Engine marketplace that is well worth its money. It's got a lot of really cool features. I can't go into all of them in this video, obviously, but that's what's creating all the splash animations, and it's using the collision shapes. You can see this is the convex collision, so that's why you get this weird kind of splashing happening here, but it is amazing. It is amazing. So if I was to jump into this sequence that's marked as test, and I'm just going to kind of put this over here maybe, and just kind of scrub forward as we look through the camera. You can see the animation coming out, and it cuts to a close-up, and then also cuts to another shot of him saying "I'm vengeance," which is the coolest shot and the coolest part of the entire movie, which is why I wanted to recreate this. I do have some audio tracks in here that I'm going to go ahead and mute, so I don't kill the people wearing the earbuds. So let's see if I go ahead and play this back. I know the compression is going to make the rain look super weird on YouTube, but when I'm looking at it here, like, there is a really nice detail, and it really is kind of coming together in a way that I wasn't anticipating hitting this kind of level in Unreal Engine. I'm just gonna be frank with you. I tried to challenge myself with this project, and I definitely did. There was an insane amount of stuff that I learned on this project, and I'm just super impressed by the quality that Unreal has, especially in real time. This is using some ray tracing features. The lights are ray traced. I am using the NVIDIA's RTX GI for the GI in this scene. And the reason being, they have this really cool light multiplier here for GI, and you can just like crank this up. So you know, obviously this looks super weird. This is at a really unrealistic value, but it kind of helps you art direct a little bit more in terms of GI, and it is super cool, and I highly recommend you trying it out in your projects. But I'll show you how that's done. You need to actually load the plugin from NVIDIA's website. So if I just type in RTX, you can see RTX Global Illumination, and you use the DDGI volume. You place that into your scene. It is a volume that places tiny probes. You can see a probe right here. This scene is incredibly dark, so you don't really get any bounce light, but man, if you're into ray tracing, this DDGI volume, it's kind of weird to say, is much better, and it is much more performant than the post-process volume. If you were to scroll down, you can see that the GI method is set to the plugin, and yeah, the other version that's in Unreal is extremely, the standalone ray trace deprecated, that's flagged as deprecated in 5.0, is extremely intense. Like, it's very computationally heavy, and it's not a great solution for GI in real time. This volume kind of creates this these semi what do they call them? The spherical harmonics. it creates these spherical harmonics that are kind of like all around the scene, and they capture a lot of the indirect volume, I'm sorry, a lot of the indirect light, and put it into that volume, and then you can put it into your scene, and it makes it super awesome to be able to art direct with. You can do a lot with that, and most of the controls are in console commands or on the actual DDGI volume itself. You can see what I was controlling in sequencer was the brightness, I believe, which is probably it is in here somewhere if you bear with me. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Emissive and light multiplier under GI lighting. Right now, you can kind of change all of this stuff however you like, and then you would put the number of probes in here that you need without running out of memory. But you know, I have 8, 12, and 8 for my probe count, and I changed the arrays per probe to 1008, and there's many different options in here. So yeah, it's not for a game, it's for cinematic, but hey, it runs like a game. It runs like super fast in this scene. If I was just to switch on, I'm also using DLSS, by the way. Full disclosure, I love all of NVIDIA's technology, and I'm totally using that in here. And it does allow my GPU to create some pretty awesome effects in here. I'm using a 3090 Ti, by the way, and it's running at around 30 FPS, which is completely real time for me in here, playing at 24 FPS in sequencer. Okay, so what else do we have in the scene that I can break down for you? There's decals. There is a really awesome asset that was for free in the month of November, so I hope you grabbed it. It's a rain effect for materials, but it's also in a decal. So this decal material, if I was to come over to Batman and look at him and then hide this, it actually creates some rain splashes on the top of the cowl there, and it also provides a little bit more detail for ground splashes and things like that on the surface itself. Most of the splashes are coming from a material function that is in Ultra Dynamic Sky. Almost forgot what it was called. So if I was to open the concrete tiles, just for example, I also use this in my master material for Batman, but this wet weather effects, it knows what's going on with Ultra Dynamic Sky, and you can set certain parameters in here. So it's just a material function, but you just plug everything into it and then out of it and back into your material again. So super easy to use, and it's very performant, and it works great, and it creates all these awesome looking textures in your scene. All the puddle effects and all the rain effects are driven by Niagara on the GPU. So super performant and looks amazing. Well, I believe the only other thing we can talk about really is the sequencer export settings. So we can open those up, and I believe I used a preset here. So if I load a preset, I believe I was using this EXR 1080p, which I was shooting out EXRs for Davinci, and this was my anti-aliasing 3 and 8 override. Anti-aliasing, of course, so that you get the subsampling in between frames. And this is what I was using. I always use this camera setting just to throw it in there for it used to help with motion blur. I don't think it uses that anymore, but I just put it in there anyways. I'm also using DLAA, deep learning anti-aliasing, as an effect. This is a plugin that needs to be enabled. So if I come up to plugins and type DLSS, you have the movie render queue support, and then also the viewport plugin. So enable both of those because they're incredible. And then I'm using game overrides. What this does is it disables streaming and a lot of the game performant technology, and just allows you to do extremely high resolution and detailed images, high resolution textures, turns off LODs, it turns off a lot of stuff all in one setting, which is great. It's it works amazingly. And then I rendered like 5K images, basically. Like they're super high resolution images. This rendered really, really well, especially with all the technology like DLAA. And you know, I wasn't GPU bound per se. VRAM was pretty low and manageable, and I believe this was rendering in like 20 minutes, I want to say, for this whole scene, which is around 480 images or so. So definitely fast for 5K images. It's blows my mind how fast like I can render and iterate through this stuff. And that leads me to my next point, and the point that I wanted to make at the very beginning of the video is that using this workflow may seem like a lot of work, right? Like I built everything in Blender, did everything myself, and brought it into Unreal, but the iteration time that I iterated over this project throughout the months that I was doing it has been like, I'm not even kidding, like 10 times, 20 times more than what I did when I was using like Cinema 4D, Octane, Redshift. Those tools are incredible, but I was able to see what this project was looking like super early on, especially using Blender and especially using Substance Painter. You know, everything was pretty much live, like real time. Like I didn't have to load anything into a render engine to take a look at it. Especially once you get into Unreal and you start doing all the lighting and the look dev and the animation, you see everything in context. So you're not wondering what the final image is going to look like. You just create like 20 different versions of what the actual end result's going to look like. And I think people moving over from offline rendering into online rendering, I've heard this argument a lot, like, oh, the setup time takes a lot of time in Unreal, and then you render at the very last second. And it's like, no, you don't render at the very last second. You were rendering since you brought it into the engine. You saw exactly what it looked like from start to finish. So the iteration time and the setup time is negligible when you look at it on the other end of doing offline, because now I can't even imagine going back into Redshift or Octane. Octane I am still a big fan of because of the technology there. Redshift I still think is extremely slow, and like there are some weird things with Redshift. In terms of technology, it's incredible, but from a workflow perspective, I find that I am really slow with Redshift, and I kind of just have to like give up almost, because the render times are insane, and you know, the look dev iteration time is very slow. I don't get feedback necessarily. So I'm going to step down from my soapbox and actually go into the last part of this video, which is color correction in Davinci Resolve. So I'm going to open Davinci, and we're going to take a look at how I did a little bit of color tweaking inside of that project. Okay, so here we are inside of Davinci Resolve, and I've noticed in the past when I do screen recordings at Davinci, it does pull my system resources pretty hard, which I do love that it takes advantage of my computer. But if it is a little bit slow, I apologize. Or if the video is choppy or anything, I do apologize. So I want to show you what it looked like before. So this is the raw EXR rendering linear color space from Unreal Engine, and here is kind of the color that I came up with inside of Davinci. So if I was to go and look at these clips, you can see before and then after, and maybe we go forward a little bit more. The color that is in the film, the Batman film, is masterfully done. The oranges and reds are pushed pretty far to the point of like no return, basically, and the shadows fall into this turquoise kind of realm, to this green bluish type of realm, which is really interesting. If I was to look at this other shot here, that's more of a close-up, going back and forth, There's a little bit of pushing and pulling that I was doing, but I want to show you a little bit more hands-on of like how everything was looking. So I started off, and this is kind of how I block out most of my projects in coloring, and I'm not a colorist, by the way, but I started out with my primary wheels and just kind of get things a little bit balanced here. I know my video is covering the RGB parade, but I kind of get that balanced a little bit, and then I actually started boosting the orange a little bit here, and I was using this really cool color warper set to an axis angle of -44, and then I started pushing and pulling these points here at the bottom to kind of boost the orange a little bit. And I actually fell back a little bit on this effect. I toned it back because I had it really high up there, but if you push this knot to the right, then you can see this skin tone really goes super orange. And that's definitely not what I was after. So I know I labeled it boost orange, but I kind of pulled it back. I used it as a way to kind of pull that back. So, and then I'm doing this kind of bleach bypass. So I do this black and white effect on this top one, and then layer it with this bypass. And the way that this is layered on top of one another, if you go to the composite mode, it's set to soft light. And what that does is, if you've ever seen a bleach bypass effect, it's kind of like a black and white, and you suck out a lot of color doing it, but it's a really cool technique to kind of get some more contrast and some detail to kind of pop up a little bit. And then I use this to fix the saturation. This node here kind of pulls, it's really hard to tell, but maybe over in this area. Again, using the color warper with just a tweak of this axis angle, I can kind of pull this turquoise color in. And I don't know if you can see that in YouTube or not, but as I'm playing with this, I'm starting to get more detail in that color in the shadows. And then moving along, I'm using a lens blur radial blur effect here, adding vignetting to darken the edges, and adding film grain on top of it, and then just a really slight glow. And you can see the gain is low, but the gamma is high by using this kind of orangey color here. So that's a simple kind of high level overview of how I kind of created this effect. This kind of color, this look. Like I said, I'm not a colorist by any stretch of the imagination, but I do love jumping into Resolve and trying things out. I feel like it's approachable here. I like the node setup here, and it makes it pretty fun. So that's kind of how I tried to match the look of the Batman. Okay, so if you've made it this far in the video, just let me personally thank you for tuning in and checking it out and hearing me talk about all kinds of stuff. I know this was an overwhelming video, and there was an insane amount of information here, and there's probably a few of you out there that want some specific information, so go ahead and comment down below and let me know if you have any questions or what you thought about the video. I want to come back and do more character digital human type of content on the channel using Blender, Unreal Engine, Character Creator, iClone. I realize there are paywalls there in place, and to be able to teach as many people as possible, I really believe that tools like Blender and Unreal will get you really far in creating digital humans. But you know, I do highly recommend looking into Character Creator and iClone as a companion to Metahumans. Metahumans does a lot, an insane amount already, and it will only get better in the future. But I still think that you need some companion software. And yes, those are softwares that cost money, I understand, but if you reach out to Reallusion, they do have an amazing indie program, and they can help you get up and going learning some of these softwares, or at least tinkering with them and starting the first step of a very long journey, I'm sure. I'm also going to include a download link for the Blender file of the Batman character itself. So so that you can go in and create your own Batman characters using maybe Quixel Mixer if you don't want to use Substance Painter. Quixel Mixer is an amazing software to help you kind of do texture painting and some different variations and you know, surfacing there. But yeah, I want you guys to be able to take this Blender project and maybe make your own short films with it. I will not include the Metahuman stuff because, well, inside of Blender, it's kind of weird. Like, there's not a whole lot you could do in Blender. You can, however, create your own Metahuman, download that into Maya. There's also a indie and free trial that you can get of Maya to be able to use all the rigging tools to make the Metahuman connect up there. But you don't have to use metahumans. Like, I just use metahumans because personally I wanted to learn more about how to create custom metahumans and stuff like that. But you could create your own Robert Pattinson lookalike in any other software and just use the mesh that I've made, and you can kind of texture it however you will. You can do whatever you want. So I just want to provide that to you guys so you can jump in and start making your own characters, or at least learn from what I did, since the modeling portion of this video was very lackluster and I didn't record my screen over the you know, the many hours that I put into modeling and sculpting. So thank you again for following along and taking the time out of your busy schedule to watch this extremely long video. If you have any questions, like I said below, leave them in the comment section. And also, please like this video. I know everyone says that on YouTube, but it's really the only way to help boost the ratings of the videos, so that maybe other people can see this video and become inspired in creating their own content. So until next time, thank you guys so much, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care.